Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today we are going to do unit number 14. It's a short story titled A Long Walk Home and it has been written by Jason Bucaro. Let me first tell you a little about the author. Jason Bucaro is originally from London, but now he's living in North Carolina, that is USA. He's a professor in North Carolina State University. His story, A Long Walk Home, appeared in the collection of stories called Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. Let me give you the summary of the lesson. This story takes place in the south of Spain in a little community called Estepona. It is a narrative by a 16-year-old boy, Jason. Jason had recently learned to drive but was not getting a chance to drive on a long route. His father one day asked him to drive him to a remote village, Mijaz, which was 18 miles away from their home. Jason readily accepted this. His father laid the condition that he would take the car for service to a nearby garage. Jason drove his father to the town and promised to pick him up at 4 p.m. He took the car to the garage, and as he had few hours to spare, so he decided to watch a couple of movies. He lost all sense of time, and when the movie ended, it was 6 p.m. He was 2 hours late. When Jason realized of his mistake, he felt afraid that his father would be angry. So he decided to tell him that the car needed repairs and it had taken longer for it to be repaired. When he told his father caught his lie immediately. He had called the garage to ask about Jason, and he was told that Jason hadn't picked up the car from the garage. Jason felt guilty of telling a lie, but his father was quite angry. He thought that he was not a good father as he could not bring up a son who had the courage to speak truth. Instead of punishing his son, his father punished himself by not sitting in the car and walking 18 miles back to home. This made Jason embarrassed to see his father going through mental and physical pain, thus making this experience a memorable lesson for him. After that, Jason never told a lie. Let me tell you about the elements of the story. Plot, that is the most important element of a good story. The plot of the story has a proper sequence of events with a beginning, middle, and an end. The exposition, that is introduction, is when we are told that Jason has learned to drive and wants to try his skill on a longer route. His father provides him with the opportunity of driving him to Mijaz, a small town 80 miles away from their home. The action of the story rises when Jason realizes that he has a lot of time at his disposal and decides to watch a couple of movies. He loses all sense of time and comes out 2 hours late. The story reaches its climax when his father catches his lie. The story moves towards falling action and then finally resolution when we see that Jason is taught a lifelong lesson in an indirect way. His father, out of anger, does not sit in the car and walks all the way to home. In previous stories, I had already told you that the plot, it has 5 important parts. The first is the introduction, the second is the rising action, the third is the climax, the fourth is the falling action, and the fifth is finally the conclusion, or you can say the resolution of the problem that has been presented in that story. So here in this plot, I have discussed all these 5 parts of a plot and how this entire story is spun around these 5 important parts of the plot. Now I would move on to the next important element of story, point of view. The story has a first-person point of view. The narrator of the story is narrating it himself. Example, use of I in this sentence. So when the story starts, you see that it starts with I, first person. I grew up in the south of Spain. The benefit of this point of view is that the reader can feel with the character and can have an access to his thoughts. So, when the character is speaking directly to you, as a reader, when you listen to what the speaker is saying to you, you can easily read what goes on in his mind. Then the setting of the story, it is a little town in south of Spain, and the name of the town is Estepona. And there are two important characters, that is Jason, who is a 16 years old boy, and his father. Now I'll move on to the question answers. The first question, write the central idea of a long walk home. A long walk home is a story between the relationship of a father and his son. It deals with honesty and trust in relationship. Jason's father teaches his son to be honest and truthful. He, as a father, wants his son to trust him so that their bond would be based on love, respect, and trust, not on fear, mistrust, and dishonesty. The second question, analyze the pattern of organizing paragraphs in the text and tell what pattern has been used. This story is written in a narrative form. Therefore, the patterns in which the text is organized is both chronological and spatial. Spatial because we are given the name of places where the action of the narrative takes place. It is a small town of Estepona in the south of Spain where Jason has grown up. Then both father and son go to Mijas, which is at a distance of 18 miles. Time is also followed to chronologically unfold the events. Jason is told by his father to pick him up at 4 p.m., whereas he reaches at 6 p.m. So basically, the story is written in a narrative form. So in a narrative form of writing, because it's a story, so in the story, time and sequence of events and places, they are very important. So both these have been used to organize the paragraphs in the text. Question number 3. What was the most distressing and painful experience for Jason? When Jason told a lie about the car and his father found it out, he became angry. He blamed himself that he could not bring up his son in a proper way. There was something wrong with him as his son could not find the courage to speak truth to him. So he said that he would not come with Jason in the car and would walk 18 miles to his home. This was very distressing and painful for Jason as he drove behind his father with a speed of 5 miles per hour and with the guilt that his father is punishing himself instead of his son. The next question, what point of view has been chosen by the writer? Does it suit the writer's purpose demonstrated with reference to the text? So for this question, you should go back to slide number 6 and you will get the answer to this question. Question number 5. Why did Jason's father refuse to sit in the car and decide to walk the 18 kilometers? Was his decision justified? Out of anger, sadness, and disappointment at his son's lie, Jason's father refused to sit in the car. He felt that he had not been a good father as his son feared him instead of trusting him. His decision was justified as Jason felt guilty and ashamed and learned a long-lasting lesson. Question number 6. Why was Jason's father so angry with himself rather than his son? Jason's father was angry at himself rather than his son because he thought that it was his fault that his son was telling a lie. He thought that he had not been a good father as his son feared him instead of trusting him. Question number 7. How do you feel about this personal narrative? This narrative is a very effective one and teaches us that there should be a relationship of trust, love, and respect between parents and children. Only this kind of relationship can bring up healthy and emotionally balanced individuals. Question number 8. Analyze Jason's relationship with his father. Was Jason a good son? Jason was a careless young teenager. He was given a responsibility by his father to take the car to the garage for repairs and pick him up at 4 p.m. Jason behaved irresponsibly and went to watch movies. This resulted in his getting late. In order to hide his casual behavior, he lied to his father without realizing that his lie will be found out. But as soon as he realized the situation and the reaction of his father, he was filled with shame and remorse. So Jason cannot be called as a bad son. In fact, he was careless and irresponsible. The last question, evaluate the character and personality of Jason's father. So here I have drawn a flow chart to pinpoint some of the qualities that were present in Jason's father. He was a man of principles because he believed that one should tell the truth. One should not speak a lie. Then he was a loving father because he did not want, in first place, he did not want his son to speak a lie, and he wanted his son to be an honest, to be a responsible citizen when he grows up as a mature young man. So, as a loving father who takes care in the complete upbringing of his children, so here we see that Jason's father was a very caring and a very loving father. He did not want to leave any loophole in the upbringing of his son. A strict disciplinarian. He was a strict disciplinarian because we see here that he, in order to teach his son that he should not speak lies in his life, he punished himself instead of punishing his son. And if he had punished his son would have forgotten that punishment. But the punishment that he gave himself was a very strong lesson that he taught his son. And in an indirect way, he taught a lesson to his son, which his son remembered his whole life. A patient father, we see that through this story that he was a patient father. He did not shout and scream and yell at his son. Neither did he punish his son, but in a very effective way, he taught his son a very good lesson. And this lesson was so effective that his son never told a lie in his life. Then he is self-analytical. When Jason told him a lie, his father was sad and he blamed himself that he had not been a good father because his son, instead of trusting him, his son was afraid of him. So that is why his son had told a lie. So he analyzes himself that it was his fault that his son was telling a lie. So these are some of the characteristics of the personality of Jason's father. Hopefully, girls, you would have understood this lesson. And finally, I would like to thank you all for being patient.